Hi everyone, in this episode I will be building a mini cross-cutting sled. The cross-cutting sled somehow considered the most useful jig that you can add to your table saw, as if it is built properly, then it will reward you with an excellent accuracy on every cut you will make. Yet it is very easy to make. So let's make one. To avoid tearing out the plywood, I'm trying to score it. To score the plywood, simply lower the saw blade to cut 1/8 of an inch in the first cut. Then flip the board over and do the same to the opposite side of the board. Then make your full cut. That's a clean cut as much as it can be, just by using a multi-purpose blade. Instead of having the runners made out of hardwood, I've decided to use this type of plastic. I think this is called like Teflon or something like that. I'm not sure of the material, but I know that it's very stable and it won't change with the humidity. Here I'm using my marking gauge to measure the depth of the table saw T-track. Cutting Teflon on the table saw is a tricky business, or somehow a tricky business, because it tends to bend when hit by the table saw blade. So, caution needs to be taken. This is why I'm using my Krig gripper. As I don't have enough Teflon to cover the length of the table saw tracks, I have decided to cut them into two pieces. This way, I can distribute them between the front and the rear side of the T-track. Here I'm using two squares to determine the exact center of the runners, so I won't end up drilling a hole in my table saw. This countersink bit is better used before drilling the hole in the wood to ensure consistency and a clean drilling. Then I will use a normal drilling bit to complete drilling the hole. I prefer this method for holding the runners to the cross-cutting sled, as it gives you the advantage of replacing the runners if they start wearing out. I decided to use the mahogany as a front and back fences, as it will hold the screws better than the plywood and can withstand the pressure from clamping. Also, it will hold the T-track slot better than what the plywood can offer. Putting a chamfer on the front fence lower edge helps reduce dust accumulation between the front fence and the workpiece. To attach the back fence, I'm using a threaded inserts and screws. This way, I can consider the fence removable in case required, without damaging the wood holes from screwing and unscrewing them back to the same hole again and again. It is not easy to use the same threaded inserts when installing the front fence, so I will be using normal wood screws. As once the front fence is calibrated, you don't need to mess with it and better left untouched. To install the front fence, I will start with 2 screws at the beginning. Then I will make a test cut to decide if the fence needs recalibration or it's good to go. This is the famous 5 cuts method, which magnifies error in the squareness to 4 times the actual. To use this method, you can start with any scrap piece of plywood or MDF and mark its 4 edges from 1 to 4. Then mark the first edge front as A and the back as B, as you can see in the video. Begin your first cut on edge number 1, then rotate the workpiece to the right and make your second cut. Do so until you reach the edge number 1 again. Then make the 5th cut around 1 inch wide or so. The 1 inch is not a critical width. Any width should work just fine. Now grab your digital caliper and measure the width of point A and point B, then write them down. We need to calculate the difference between A and B by subtracting B from A, which will give us minus 0.027 of an inch. Actually, this is 4 times the actual error per cut. To get the error per 1 cut, we have to divide this number over 4, as we already made 4 cuts, which will give us 1/6 of an inch. To calculate the error per inch, we should divide this number over the length of the piece marked A to B, which is 10 3/4 of an inch. This will give us 6/10,000ths of an inch, which is pretty good. I think I'm good with that number. and I'm not going to make any changes to my CrossCut Sled fence this time. However, to be able to improve this number even further, just in case you want to go nuts, you have to multiply this number with the length of the front fence measured between the two screws which we have installed to attach the front fence with the plywood base. As this number is negative, then you should push the front face away from you forward by 0.0131 of an inch, which is 100 of an inch. If it happens the number is positive, then you should pull back the front face towards you. You can do that by unscrewing the left screw on the front fence and keep the one to the right as a pivot to make an arc movement forward and backward as required. Of course, I'm not going to do that, as 6,000 of an inch is pretty damn good. This is an optional addition to the sled, which will help me clamp a stop for repetitive cuts. This is a test cut to make sure that the stop jig is calibrated properly. It is somehow calibrated, but I forgot to shift the adhesive tape by 3/4 of an inch to the right to compensate for the Kreg stop length. Anyway, I can replace this adhesive tape if necessary. I will use a regular wax as a finish. Nothing fancy, just a little protection. At the end, thank you for watching. If you find this video useful, please don't forget to subscribe, as more interesting projects are on the way. Thank you all and take care.